watching. It is deeply wonderful, deeply honored to have you joining us here today. So thank you for joining us. And I want to start by talking about today the importance of stories. And it's like, boy, we could talk about this in so many different ways. And what matters is we start with the basic idea that we will live into the stories we tell. We have a certain story we tell about the world, and that creates how we experience the world. So two people with two different stories can be walking down a road and seeing the same things, maybe even physically experiencing the same things, and they will both have very different experiences in here and in here because they're just telling different stories about what is. So what would be an example of that? Well, let's take the extremes. Always good to look at the extremes to kind of drive the point home. One is imagine the story we tell is that life is unfair. I never get a fair shake. Life is against me. Well, that's what we're going to look for. And that's what we're going to find. We're going to find consistent evidence that life is unfair and that life is sort of grinding us down. We'll find it all the time. It's really hard, to be in that place. It's hard to be around people who are in that place. As a pastor, I would frankly urge you, if you find yourself in that place, to use the famous Bob Newhart phrase, stop it. It just won't work. It's not a great way to live life or to spend the precious few years we have here in this life. And imagine we shift that, and we shift that away to something like a life. I was picking a couple of words as I was thinking about this morning: joy and curiosity. Like we're gonna regard joy as the starting point, not just the product of life. We're gonna lean into that. We're gonna really find curiosity. A friend of mine reminded me of a quote that I read years ago. Such a beautiful quote, which is, "We enter a room and wonder if we belong. Jesus enters a room and loves what he finds there." And I think that's the way we're supposed to enter a room. It's just very different, very different. Like life is unfair. One person walking down, life's always trying to grind me down. One person walking down the street that way, the other person walking down with joy and curiosity. Two very different ways to experience life. So stories are really important. Now let's add in the spiritual component. We can't lose track of the fact that when we look at the gospel and the four gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, that the word gospel means good news. Good news, like this idea of Christianity as the way, this idea of it's this beautiful way to live, this idea of Jesus saying, look, I'm going to offer you the fullness of joy. That's all critically important, and it's very much where God is coming from. And that bit that we can choose that particular perspective to have, and that the Gospels actually help us to get to that. They help us to get to who we were created from all time to be. And I would say that's why they've lasted thousands of years. Outside of the obviously the divine nature of them, even if you don't buy into the divine nature, like, why are people still reading it thousands of years later? A book written in the 1980s is long gone. But these four Gospels, they've just continued on for millennium. And it's because they offer this beautiful idea of good news, gospel truth. This is the really good news that you can sort of latch on to, you can hitch your wagon to. So how do we do that? Like how do we think about these stories? And it's important for this, like for today, the theme is really, really pretty simple, which is be around those people who pull the best story out of you. It's interesting, and this is not to put it all on other people. Like we have to have agency and we have to make decisions. And at the same time, we have to be aware that some people seem to inevitably have a way of bringing out the best stories in us. And they help us to sort of, lack of a better word, up our game to a whole new level. And other people, it seems to work the other way. And that's not to put blame on them. I mean, clearly, if we're finding ourselves in decline, so to speak, because we're around another person, that's largely our choice. And we need to be aware of that and make decisions. And there are some people who we can choose to sort of keep a healthy, love them dearly, and at the same time, keep in just a little bit of distance, because we know that for whatever reason, when we're around that person, the stories just degrades a bit. And so we want to be careful about that. We want to sort of shepherd our energy, so to speak. And at the same time, like, look at the opposite, right? Like, look at the opposite, the best story. And once we get to that, right, those people who really bring out the best story, just think about how that goes. And our job isn't to just be around those people. Our job is to be one of those people who, when other people are around, we're pulling out their best story. We see them as part of this epic adventure. We see them for their best selves. We're serving, Swedenborgian perspective here. We serve the good in the neighbor. We're seeing what's really good in them. We're sort of eliciting that and pulling that out, bringing that story forth. And it's very different, when we come from that place. And a passage I wanted to read today was from the book Heaven and Hell. It's talking about angels here. And it says, angels have no self-image acquired through love for themselves and the world. So that idea, like as we're on our path, we're all walking together, as Ram Dass says, we're on our way home, we're walking together on our way home. There's this beautiful, beautiful concept, right? That as we do this, and that angelic self, that deeper soul, that true self. The true self is not going to be formed by ego or possessions. It's going to be formed by this deep, deep, deep knowledge of who we actually are in God. Again, Jesus, in whom we live, breathe, and have our being. Like it's the far different kind of identity. And that identity, so incredibly powerful. And I think about that, like how much of when we're in our younger years, and some people get stuck in this for a long time, we really try to form our identity through material possessions. What's all the stuff I can have, and that will somehow define who I am, and what are all the accolades, aka the ego, that we want to have, that somehow that will define who I am. And yet inevitably we find those things don't work because they don't go with us to heaven. So, moral of the story is to both be around those people who help to see that deeper identity in you, see that deeper piece. And the trick is, as well, is for you to be that person for others. Really see their deeper identity. Really see the better story, the best story, if you can, of their life. And again, that's the gospel. That's good news. You want to know how to spread the good news? Simply live into better stories and see better stories in other people and tell them, remind them, consistently go and say like, oh yeah, there's the better story, and allow that to be pulled out. That's what we want to be in our lives today. So hopefully that makes sense, dear friends. And what we're going to do now is we're going to take a little breath. We're going to take a little minute here to like clear our minds, and we're going to do a little meditation, a little prayer, and a little blessing. So, ready for a little breath? Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am. Be still and know that I. Be still and know that. Be still and know. Be still and. Be still. Be. Our Father, who art in the heavens, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, as in heaven, so upon the earth. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we also forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you, bring you peace, and bring you home. Amen. All right, dear friends, let's give a little cheery hello to all those who have joined us this morning. And again, I hope you all have a wonderful day ahead of you. All right, nothing on that page, so let's flip over to the other one real quickly and just see what is what over there. By the way, great wedding yesterday. We had a beautiful wedding yesterday. My dear friend Scott and my dear friend Julie, beautiful wedding for them yesterday. So that was fun. Fun doing a little Monday wedding. All right, dear friends. Well, wishing you guys all the very best.